Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Tribeca Trade Group, and this is your end of day market recap for Tuesday, August 29th. First things first, risk disclaimer right in front of you. Everything that we're going through in this video is for information purposes only, not giving out any advice or recommendations. Well, that's a little bit of a different screen than you're probably used to. Also different than I'm used to as well. A lot of green on your screen, a lot of performance. So what were the themes of the day? Well, bad news was good news in terms of economics and also in terms of breadth, which really led to a super strong breadth day, something that we haven't seen too much of in August, but nice to see it show up towards the end of the month, which is a little bit of a stronger seasonal period. As we, August is one of the weakest seasonal months. That's something that we've talked about multiple times during the month, but it's kind of light at the end of the tunnel in terms of seasonality as it does improve the last week of August. And then it's kind of sketchy, I believe, in terms of September, right? There's some periods where it's strong and then there's a little bit of weakness. It's kind of a toss-up month in terms of seasonality. But so let's talk a little bit about some of the, some of what happened today, and then we will go over some of the moves in the charts. I thought also, even before we get to the economics of the day, the title of my video yesterday was a step in the right direction. We saw breadth really kind of turn the corner, and we saw more things start to advance than decline. The charts that I went through in yesterday's video, I really went through a lot of them kind of quickly, but I don't normally go through like 10 or 15 charts. But you started to just see things really, as said, turn the corner and look like they were starting to kind of build some momentum to the upside. So I think that, if you look at the numbers and obviously the green on your screen right here, I think that that worked pretty well. What was also interesting too is that all the gains that happened today were not so much in the overnight session, which we saw that yesterday for the Qs in the S&P, but more so this was a nice trending day, especially till we got to about lunchtime, and then we kind of grinded higher from there. So what did it today? The JOLTS jobs openings less than expected, and the consumer confidence, right? So this came in much less than expected. It kind of means that to take this as with drawing a conclusion from here is that that the Fed wants to see some of the data cool, and I think that's what you got today. And we could look at interest rate expectations, right? And again, this is what the Fed controls, and this is Fed fund futures, super short. This is short term. This is the overnight rate, and this is what the Fed controls, right? So what's this implying when we look at this? And I hope that you can see it. If not, I'll blow this up a little bit, but there's only a 14% chance that that there's an interest rate hike come November 20th. I think that I don't think that we get an interest rate hike, but I think that there's always going to be something greater than zero, because we're going to get the economics is not done for the week. We're going to get the PCE deflator, which is a gauge of inflation that the Fed looks at. We're going to get that on Thursday. We're also going to get another CPI report. So we're going to get a lot more information. And that's why, today was one set. There could be some other data that we get that that contradicts what we saw today. Right. And then what's interesting too is look when you get towards the, about a year from now, really the market is starting to price in Fed cuts. Now, we've seen this a couple times over the last year. The market has gotten ahead of itself, and then Powell and the Fed dampens this, and these expectations go away. But this is getting pretty interesting in terms of what this is implying at this point. But cuts down the line. So but again, this is this is a long time away. This is a year from now. So I wanted to bring that up just so that you could see that there was some impact in terms of those numbers today. Let's get back to, before I go to talk about the technicals and some of the other action of the day, don't forget, tomorrow we're going to get some more, another batch of economics that to come out. That's at 8:30 tomorrow. You're going to get pending new home sales, GDP numbers, but just keep in the back of your mind, that the GDP numbers are lagging, right? You could look up, you can Google this, lagging indicators versus leading indicators, right? And GDP is a lagging indicator. Then on Thursday, which is the last trading day of the month, here's where I think the most important data is going to come out, or could be, right, depending on if it's much different than expectations. But that's the PCE deflator. We'll also get initial jobless claims for the week. Okay, just wanted to cover that so that you get a sense of what's going on. But two of the big things that this kind of led to is a move down in the dollar. Look at what happened with the dollar today, almost down 0.6%. That is a huge move for the dollar. So moving back, I thought we would see a check back to this virgin point of control. I think that we got it at this point. You're going to now get the dollar off of overbought levels, which if you were looking at the RSI, and I think we briefly went over this in yesterday's video, but we did get to overbought like about a 71.72. And you could see other times when the dollar's gotten pretty overbought, there's been some backing and filling, right? And then of course TLT, right? So the dollar's getting weaker, right? That's more of a risk on environment for stocks like that when the dollar gets weaker. Also what happened was rates came in a little bit, right? So the other major headwind for stocks, right? And we could look at this across the curve, right? It's important not to just look at what TLT, the long end of the curve, but you could see this, look at the short end of the curve, right? So we talked about Fed Fund Futures, which is the overnight rate and something that the Fed controls. The Fed doesn't control any of these. Maybe indirectly if they're doing some type of a bond program, or directly, if I should say, if they're doing a bond, some type of stimulus there. But right now that's not the case. And the 2-year moved down, the 2 and the 3-year moved down 11 basis points. So much bigger move when you look at the shorter end of the curve. And you can look at things like SHI, right, which is 1 to 3 treasury bonds, and you can see there's a big green candle in here, right, which is 1 to 3 years. So again, all of this is just a little bit of background, right? Gave the fuel today for the move. People like to look at Bitcoin too. Sure, you can look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin gave kind of more of a risk-on move, bounces on the 200-day moving average, fills this gap in here. Still, I think a difficult chart. But for now, holding the 200-day moving average. I want to talk about S&P futures because there are some developments here. A couple of the scenario, I outlined a few different scenarios that could take place here. Number one, I mentioned, we could take out the lows. Number two, I thought that we were making a higher low here, which is good, right? And now you have something that I mentioned too, a possibility of a W pattern, right? We have now broken back above the 50-day moving average. We've also broken back into the value area for the month. So this is the highest point that we've been basically since all the way back on the 15th of the month, right? So we made some progress. Of course, we hit a couple overhead supply areas when you look at the 1-hour chart. So we might see a little bit of a pause here, maybe backing and filling. But I think what you're going to want to see here in S&P futures is for price to stay above this 44.87 level. So again, why do I go over these levels and so on and so forth? So that you can make decisions based on them, right? So that right? We're above a certain level. You could be long against that level. If we break back below, maybe you want to consider reducing risk, right? And that lines up almost perfectly with the 50-day moving average. I like when the value areas line up with the moving averages like that. Just gives another sense of confidence, right? Here's the Qs, right? The Qs close right at the bottom of value, right? They did get over the 50-day moving average. So not as clear as like a W pattern, but still moving in the right direction. Watch this 375 level. That's a resistance, and we'll see if we can get back above there. IWM, we'll have resistance at 189.81. Again, I want to just keep going here because I think there's very interesting charts to go over besides the indices, but obviously all of them moving in the right direction. Gold had a big day today, right? Gold, I think, is more of a reversion to the mean type move. I think the trend is kind of difficult here. Note gold futures are still below the 200-day moving average. Silver, which has been outperforming, also had a decent day today. Silver is a bit stronger than gold, right? That's had some more momentum to it from the lows here over the last week or so, but gets you back into basically the value area. So again, I don't see like a crazy strong trend here. Just, really nice price action over the last week. Let me get to some of the heavy hitters. I'll start with Apple, right? So they announced their new product day today. I still think this has to get over the 50-day moving average. It still has some work to do, but this is one heck of a move off the lows here, and above the 5 and the 20-day moving average. I don't know if there's really anything here on the 1-hour chart. Maybe you could see some backing and filling in here. I think that would be constructive, but overall pretty good looking. Of course, NVIDIA, all the attention that this received last week, did a little bit of a check back. Shaking out probably, some traders, investors a little bit on the move down. But notice it had a new closing high today. And for me, the level to watch there is 478. That's a move back above the value area, and I think pretty strong, right? Again, I think, those shakeouts, while they can be painful, if you're trapped in if you're in a trade, I think are overall pretty good to see that type of price action to kind of get out, remove some of the weak hands that have been in the stock, and let's see if it can continue upwards and onwards. A couple other, the semiconductor group was pretty strong. The SMH ETF got inside the value area. We did see some call buying and, the triple leveraged SMA semis ETF SOXL. We saw that right in the beginning of the day. It was a little bit of a clue that you might see some outperformance in this group. ACLS, which has been a favorite of mine, it's been a very strong name. Not back above its value area for the month, but I like the move back above all the short-term moving averages, including the 50-day moving average. A new one for you. Someone brought this one to my attention. This is Onto Innovation. I think this is a play on AI. Look at the volume on this move. This was a huge move. Maybe something to kind of, if you're looking for a new name, I thought that this was very interesting to see this breakout to new highs like that. Maybe an inside day would be welcomed for, possible entry. Very interesting there. Google. I've been shaken in and out of Google a couple times this month, but I've mentioned that I really like the fact that this went sideways while the market was going down, right? Just acted a bit differently. And, ultimately, I think the trend is still intact. And I'm looking for a move up to 141.81. That's a virgin point of control, which is where a good portion of volume occurred last year. And that's where I think that price could be headed to, as long as it stays above 126, which is the top of value on the weekly chart. A couple names that we went over in yesterday's video. The China names obviously carry an extra layer of risk, but I thought this was a really nice setup. I did not play this in LI, but really held the 50-day moving average in that top of value like a champ after, an accelerated move to the upside, now turning back up and above all those short-term moving averages. Celsius, which is a name I got long yesterday, nice follow through on this one, breaking out to new highs, was up about 3% for the day. And again, that's brand new, new closing highs for Celsius. I did take some profits in that one. Caterpillar was also a name that I got long yesterday. And I took some off at the end of the day yesterday and I added back. I've been doing these little things where, if I get into a position on day one and it doesn't really do too much, I take off some of the position just so I'm a little bit more comfortable holding the swing, especially in this environment where it's been trickier in August to hold swings. So I've been making these little adjustments that keeps me in names. And if it has downside action the next day, I I have some flexibility where I can add to the position where I'm not sweating it. Right. So that was another name. Tesla had a big day today. Tesla, again, I still think is not out of the woods, kind of like Apple. It's got resistance up there at 260.80. You know, this has made one heck of a move from the lows. So you know, good to see. This took out 2 virgin point of controls. There's another one up here at 264.95, but might see some digestion in here and maybe some backing and filling a little bit. But I would watch that 261 level. Price is going to need to overtake that for, you know, more of a substantiated move. But real nice move from the lows. Some of this, you know, some of these names that they're kind of they've been really beaten up like that, you know, playing the bounce and putting the money in your pocket once you get the bounce, to me is not a bad strategy as well. Don't need to see every name get back to the new highs right away. Some of them are just, you know, in my opinion, pretty good trading setups. I mentioned LI. I'll give you, considering I talked about Caterpillar, I also like this materials name, right? A slower moving name, but look at the trend in this thing, right? This is Lind. I also look at APD, which is one of its competitors, I believe, but really nice move off the 50-day moving average. Again, I don't mind slower moving names as long as they're moving in the right direction. IONQ is another name that's pretty interesting. You know, again, this is one that's, you know, you could day trade the hell out of it because it's a volatile name. And it did move back above its value area 1572, and also just a little bit above last week's highs, which I view as a positive. That's one way as well that you could kind of separate what names are really showing some relative strength. If they got above last week's highs, right, you know, or there's a closing above last week's highs, you know, I view that as very positive versus other names that, you know, have not been able to do that yet, right? The names that have done it, right, that shows to me leadership. Names that haven't done it could just be some, you know, really strong bounces. So something to think about as you go through your charts. Thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate you, Phil, catching this video. And if you don't mind, if this is value added, please give it a like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thanks, guys. Have a great night. See you tomorrow.